Seriously, who's blowing up my phone? Oh, yeah. Powerball.
Big news. Powerball now draws 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Play now. Please play responsibly. Must be 18 years or older to purchase player claim.
Spring it on with 40 to 70% off almost everything at Gap Factory and gapfactory.com. Matching styles for the family are on sale too. Shop it all through April 12th.
This is Donald Parham of the LA Chargers, and you're listening to Chargers Unleashed, part of the LA Football Network. Stay jiggy.
3, 2, 1.
This is Chargers Unleashed podcast. Here are your hosts, Dan Wolfenstein and Jake Hefner.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolfenstein here with you from the LA Football Network. Today's show, of course, is being brought to you by UFC Fit in Temecula, Charger Bolt Family, MyBookie, Golden Road Brewery, and Tick Pick. Dan, we don't got any time to waste. We were just on here on the live show just last night, and we got to go right back to work because Thursday's the day. Thursday is the game of the year. Thursday is the matchup. Already had some drama filled as far as player availability goes in just a short period of time. Thursday night matchup for first place in the AFC West. Chargers versus the Chiefs. Hold on to your butts.
I am.
Thank you, Dan, for making it weird.
Welcome to Chargers Unleashed. Excited to be here. Arguably game of the year for the Chargers, considering who they've gone up against this year. That's saying something. At home, prime time, the only NFL game on Thursday. Chargers, Chiefs. And look, at this point yesterday, people were all in their feelings, rightly so, about Rashawn Slater. And we haven't gotten any good news about Rashawn Slater. So that's not really changing. However, now there's news that Chris Jones has COVID and may be out. So tit for tat, I guess. I would argue Rashawn Slater is more important. But if you look around the NFL in general, COVID has gone rampant. And we're getting more, I think, in this last day or two than we've seen all throughout the last couple of years. So it's affecting everybody. As much as people don't want to hear it, next man up. I know Trey Pipkins doesn't excite anyone. I get it. But it's where we're at. So don't forget, Justin Herbert won Rookie of the Year without Rashawn Slater. So a lot of things need to happen for this Chargers team to win this game and, oh, by the way, sweep the Chiefs in 2021. But it's not going to be easy. And this Chiefs team is a very different Chiefs team than we've seen in whatever it was, week 4 or 5. I forget exactly. Chiefs have gone up against some pretty cupcake teams, if I'm being honest, over the last couple months. Padding their stats a bit on defense, in my opinion. So today, we're going to get into all of the biggest, Chargers offense, Chiefs defense, Chiefs offense, Chargers defense, special teams, nuggets, keys, bold, and game predictions, as always. And we're going to hit you with some truth bombs today. But Jake, look, I like our team. We already heard Keenan Allen's back. Still waiting on Derwin James, which we've heard rumblings from Kaiser White that he may be back. Asante Samuel Jr., we've heard rumblings that he may be back. So, look, we're getting guys back. All hands on deck on the offensive line. Chargers, Chiefs for the AFC West crown, at least through week 15. Initial thoughts. Anything changed from yesterday when you were bah humbug and were already racking this up as an L?
No, not much. I will be.
Let's wrap it up. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in to Chargers Unleashed. We really appreciate it. Shout out to our listeners, all of our sponsors. Thank you so much. This was a treat.
I get back.
Yeah. No, Dan, it's not that much. I get everything that you're saying as far as who the Chiefs have gone through over the last 6 weeks. 2 of them, basically virtually half their points in the last 7 weeks were against one team twice.
Raiders.
Look, and yes, it is a very different Chiefs team that the Chargers are going to go up against here. So Dan and I are going to break everything down best we can, both offensively and defensively. But summarization here, Dan, even still, the fact that this is going to be a very different Chiefs team that you're going to see. Chargers only won that game by 6 earlier on in the season. It's not like they dominated it. It's not like they shut Patrick Mahomes down. In the first half, it looked like that. But in true Chargers nature, you can never kill the Chiefs. So they came back. Justin Herbert had one of his best games of the entire season, and he's going to have to replicate these numbers, if not do better. He went 26 of 38 for 281 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Not bad.
That's going to be the type of game that Justin Herbert is going to have. In the rushing game, the Chargers, while they didn't really need it that much, Austin Eckler carried the ball 11 times for only 55 yards. He was the leading rusher. No rushing touchdowns, but he added 6 receptions for 52 yards and a touchdown. Mike Williams, this was the Mike Williams that everybody was loving at the beginning of the season. 7 receptions, 122 yards.
Always against KC.
Touchdowns. That's one thing that I will bet on. That's one thing, if we're talking consistency here, Mike Williams has those defining moments against the Chiefs. Dan, this is going to have to be really another defensive type game for this team because Alohi Gilman had an interception. Asante Samuel Jr. had an interception in their first meeting. And you turned the ball over. You forced 2 more fumbles, if I remember correctly.
I think it was 4 total.
So 4 total turnovers, and you still only beat the Chiefs by 6 points.
Yep.
And now a lot has changed, both for the Chargers, offensively and defensively. A lot has changed for the Chiefs, both offensively and defensively. So take your pick, break it down. Where do you want to start?
Okay. Let's just start off hot. Let's go Chiefs defense versus the Chargers offense.
All right.
Now, I'm going to come out a little guns blazing here because I don't know about you, Jake. This Chiefs defense, while some of their statistics look pretty darn good, and I mentioned they went up against some cupcake teams over the last couple months, their defense can be had, especially by a good offense. So this episode, we're going to get into the numbers. And I'm going to let the numbers speak their own story. And you tell me if the Chargers have a chance to win this game, okay? Let's start with the Chiefs defense. Chiefs defense, some good. Hurry percentages, pressure percentage. They have the second fewest missed tackles. I think they ranked 8th in blitz percentage, 2nd in hurry percentage, 2nd in pressures, second fewest missed tackles. But they're ranked 26th in the NFL in sacks. They're not getting home. Total yards allowed, 24th in the NFL with almost 362 yards a game. Passing yards, 7th worst, over 252 yards a game. Rushing yards per attempt, not good. I think they're 26th in that. Yards after the catch allowed, Jake, they're ranked 30th. Red zone percentage, 20th. Giving up 61.5%. 4th down percentages, 26th in the NFL. Yards per play, giving up big chunks, 5.9. That gets them at 29th. 7th in takeaways.
That was the stat that I was waiting for you to bring up because they have had 15 alone in the last 5 weeks.
Yep. So that's... But then on the flip side, they're 28th in the NFL in penalties on defense. So look for first downs to be had because of their defensive penalties. So they bring a lot of guys, but they're not getting home. They're not getting sacks. They're 26th in sacks, but they're 2nd in all kinds of pressure statistics. A lot of that is because of, obviously, Chris Jones. We've got Jerron Reed, Michael Danning. They've got all kinds of folks that are creating havoc. But they're not getting home, so to speak. I think Nick Bolton leads their team in tackles for loss with 11. Frank Clark, Chris Jones are the 2 highest when it comes out to quarterback hits. But that's kind of it. They have 24 sacks total this season. Like, that's not great. They're not getting home. Flip that over. Let's have some fun. Start with the bad. Chargers offense. 29th in penalties. So Chargers offense commits a boatload of penalties. Chiefs defense commits a boatload of penalties. Call that one a wash. Rushing yards per game, 21st, which honestly isn't bad. I'll take 21st with his passing offense. That's fine. Whatever. Then a whole bunch of top 10. You ready for this, Jake? Yards per game, they rank 6th. Yards per play, ranked 4th. Yards passing per game, they rank 5th. Sack percentage allowed, 9th. Again, asterisk. No Rashawn Slater potentially. 5th in third down percentage. 4th down percentage, they rank 8th. Red zone percentage, they rank 10th. First downs per game, they rank 1st. They rank 4th. And then last but not least, rushing fumbles. They have the fewest in the NFL, Jake, and that's with the Austin Eckler fumbles we saw last time. Tied for 8th in scoring. Tied with the Chiefs, actually. 27 points per game. And yards per drive, 2nd in the NFL. Chargers offense is humming. Chiefs defense have played some cupcake offenses. Nothing to the tune of this Chargers team. I know Justin Herbert might not have Rashawn Slater. I'm telling you, this Chiefs defense is going to get smacked in the mouth. Wow. Tell me how the numbers tell a different story.
Well, I can clearly tell that you had another just fantastic morning. You woke up, had 6 cups of coffee, made some probably blueberry pancakes, had a couple of protein shakes throughout the day. I know you just recently got back from the gym, so you're feeling good. You're feeling confident.
Testosterone's high.
Yeah. I don't know what type of aminos that you've been sniffing the last couple of days, Dan, but look, everybody who watches this show knows that you are the optimistic one. That's been well documented.
I'm not even putting out optimism. I'm putting out facts. These are all statistics that are facts.
Look, I know that you're putting out facts, Dan, but you still have to remember who this team is. And and when I say who it is, and Dan, there's a reason why everybody was freaking out about hearing about Derwin James' hamstring injury just before the game against the Giants. There's a reason why everybody was flipping out when they found out that Keenan Allen came down with COVID. They were freaking out when Mike Williams and Chris Harris ended up being close contacts. Thankfully, they played. But Dan, there's a reason for that. In that internal, embodiment of itself is that these are the type of things that just so happen to always happen to the Chargers. And for years and years and years and years, they have always been a very top-heavy team, especially at key positions. And if we're talking about the offensive line for the Chargers right now, while yes, it has been reinforced with what Tom Telesco did in the draft and in free agency, if we're talking about Ode Bushi, Corey Linsley, and obviously getting Rashawn Slater, Matt Filer in there as well. Very big reinforcements that have paid huge dividends. But Dan, the drop-off between Rashawn Slater and who his replacement is?
I get it.
Dan.
It's not good.
This is another thing that worried me. The right side of the offensive line, just last week against the Giants, Dan, between Michael Schofield and Storm Norton, gave up 8 pressures last week. And if Chris Jones ends up playing, Chris Jones has now been put back into his natural position where he did not play during the first meeting of the Chiefs and the Chargers.
I don't think he's playing.
We'll find out. But Frank Clark wasn't playing in that game, so Chris Jones was forced to play a different position than what he's naturally in. Now you have a Melvin Ingram that is probably just chomping at the bit to get revenge on the Chargers. You have both of these guys side by side to face off against Michael Schofield and Storm Norton. That terrifies me enough on the right side. and now you have to put Trey Pipkins on the left. Damn.
It's an all hands on. I get it.
It is because Trey Pipkins will have to have the game of his life in order.
I think
for
when
the
he played
Chargers
against the
to
Chiefs
sustain
last
that.
year, he allowed no pressures.
Dan, I got that.
I'm sorry. Is either no pressures or no sacks? I don't remember. It was one of the two.
I don't know what the stat was. All I'm saying is I've seen him play worse against lesser competition.
I have seen Justin Herbert go God mode with a crap offensive line last year. So look, it's a disadvantage to not have Rashawn Slater, obviously. But I'm just not going to go as far as to say no Rashawn Slater equals L.
I won't go as far as to say that either. But
it sucks.
When the chips are on the line, Dan, the reason that everything is elevated here is because we all understand what this game means. If the Chargers come out with a victory this Thursday against the Chiefs, they essentially control their entire destiny the rest of the way, all the way to the playoffs.
They can arguably get the 1 seed.
Depending on what happens, I'm not going to count on anybody to give us any help.
But I'm saying they're 1 game out of the 1 seed.
I understand that. But this is the hardest remaining game that the Chargers have on their schedule. If they do not fumble any games beyond this point against the Texans, the Broncos, and the Raiders, they will be in a really good position come playoff time. And who knows what's going to happen I'm not going to try to figure out where they're going to be as far as seeding wise goes. But if we're talking Friday morning, they could potentially be in the number 3 seed, which would be fantastic. And then you have to take care of business the rest of the way through. So
we're talking about a Chargers team as a 3 seed potentially.
Yes. So the weight of this game does not nearly replicate the weight of when Justin Herbert made his debut against Patrick Mahomes last year, nor does it replicate the weight of the Chargers defeating the Chiefs in Arrowhead earlier this year. So that is why the elevated pressure is on, if you will. The other things I want to make note of, the differences in defense. We talked about the Chiefs front 7 there for a little bit. Daniel Sorensen was a liability for this Chiefs team early on in the season. Was a liability, and I think that they have figured that out. Tyrann Mathieu over the last several weeks has just been an absolute animal. The dude is always around the football. So obviously, Justin Herbert is going to have to watch out for that. Ladarius Sneed, who did not end up playing last week, tragically because he actually ended up having a death in the family. I know he didn't practice today, but all indications is that he's going to be there and return on Thursday. So, Dan, I understand, like you said, they can be had. It could be just a mirror effect from what we're seeing for this Chiefs team defensively. And I get it. I understand that Rashawn Slater being out does not necessarily equal an L. But Justin Herbert is going to have one of those damn games. He's going to have to channel every piece of David Blaine, of Chris Angel, of David Copperfield, pull about 16 rabbits out of a hat, and play virtually flawless in order to win this game.
Yep, probably. But again, looking at the numbers, and let the numbers tell the story. You know the numbers that you saw Justin Herbert with last year without Rashawn Slater. Don't even get into those. And just to kind of go through real quick what we've gotten from this team. Justin Herbert, right now, has almost 3,900 yards passing, 30 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. Number 1 quarterback rating in the NFL at 100.3, plus another almost 300 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. And 1 fumble. Remember that 1 fumble here for a sec, okay? I'll get back to that when I go to Mahomes later on. Austin Eckler has over 1,250 yards from scrimmage and 16 touchdowns. So when you're talking about Rashawn Slater may being out, how do you fix that? Austin Eckler out of the backfield all the time. I would imagine him, Justin Jackson, they're going to be used a lot this game. Both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams both can break 1,000 yards receiving in this game. They're both within 85 yards.
1,000 yards receiving in this game alone?
Both of them can. One, I think it was Keenan needs 70 yards. Mike Williams needs 85 to break 1,000.
Nice.
So this offense is humming, man. This offense is humming. Now, when we get into the other side of this equation, where we talk about the Chargers defense versus the Chiefs offense, kind of similar in the sense that Chiefs offense is humming now. Again, remember, cupcake teams they've gone up against. And the Chargers defense, while they do have some areas for concern, they also have some areas that they're doing pretty darn good at. So, Chargers offense, Chiefs defense. Before we get to that section, Chargers offense, Chiefs defense. Who has the edge?
As long as the Chargers build off of the consistency that they have brought the last 2 weeks in terms of their offensive tactics and their playbook and execute the way that they play their game, essentially, offensively, then yes, I could see them winning. Now, Rashawn Slater, because again, we can't go away from this, Dan, aside from what you want to say about him and how that's going to affect Justin Herbert's blind side, it affects the run game tremendously here. And yes, I know that Austin Eckler, as far as rushing wise goes, didn't have the best running game. But even if we're running the RPO play action, which I've loved seeing from this team over the last 2 weeks, are you going to be able to get those type of holes on the left-hand side that you got with Rashawn Slater? Because you're not having too much success with anything going to the right. So are you going to be able to replicate your results to the left? That's how, again, you can't understate it. Everything really comes back to Rashawn Slater and how it affects it. So, but you're asking me, I'm telling you, can the Chargers offense score on this defense? Yes, 100%. I believe it can.
What's the magic number? How many points they got to score?
I don't think that you can go below 35. This is good. To me, this is going to have to replicate your point total of the Cleveland game, of the Cincinnati game, of the Pittsburgh game. You want to beat this team, you go north of 40.
Okay. So before we get into the other side of the coin, folks who have not made out to SoFi, you got to check out TickPick. You can get tickets for, I want to say I think Ryan had mentioned, the founder of LAFB had mentioned, you can get tickets as low as $90 right now to this Chiefs game coming up on Thursday. No way you're finding it any cheaper than that on StubHub or anywhere else. Go to tickpick.com/unleashed. I think you can save $10 and get Chargers tickets versus the Chiefs. Either you want to do that game, you do the one against the Broncos in January. Check them out. No fees. Much easier. tickpick.com/unleashed. So, Jake, we can either go Chiefs offense, Chargers defense, or we can look at special teams. Which would you like to do next?
Let's talk Chiefs offense versus this Chargers defense.
Okay. I hand it to you first, sir. Go for it.
Well, I don't have all of the statistics that Dan obviously has. But when you look at this and you go back and especially when you want to emphasize Dan's biggest point here as far as who the Chiefs have played in terms of competition, obviously canceling the Raiders out of it. Offensively, they have put up 22 points against the Broncos, 19 against the Cowboys. Again, albeit Cowboys had Amari Cooper out due to COVID. CeeDee Lamb was knocked out due to concussion. Broncos, we obviously know what their quarterback scenario is. They played the Giants, that Dan loves to talk about this game because they only beat them by 3 points. Loves to reference that.
And how many points on offense?
Only 20 points did they score in that game.
We
only 20
saw
points.
that Giants defense.
And the Chiefs put up only 13 against the Packers. Now, the Packers don't have a bad defense by far. I don't think that their defense gets nearly enough credit. But offensively, and this is kind of, I think the best way that anybody could analyze this, because Mike Greenberg asked this on Get Up, and he was asking Dan Graziano. He said, overreaction. Is it an overreaction to say that the Chiefs are back? And Graziano said, yes, it would be, because he brought up the same points you are, Dan. He's like, throw out the Raiders games and start looking at what they've done offensively or defensively, for that matter, against their other opponents for the better part of the last 6 or 7 weeks. Now, he did say, however, if they were able to defeat the Chargers on Thursday, then he would say that the Chiefs would be back in that circumstance. But I get it, Dan. One thing that I think is to make note of, and this is relevant just because it affected the first matchup that the Chargers and the Chiefs played earlier this year, is that Clyde Edwards Helaire had himself a pretty nice game in that game. 17 carries, 100 yards, averaged just under 6 yards a carry. And what are the Chiefs doing more of as of late? They are running the football. I think they are trying to get more balanced, as a lot of the guys have been talking about. Patrick Mahomes, I think, is understanding as a quarterback that he needs to be a little bit more disciplined because of all the turnovers that were happening earlier on in the season. He can't be making the, drop backs with 16 cartwheels, 3 pirouettes, and a blindfold around his face mask, and then chuck it down the field. And it's one of those type of highlight reel plays to Tyreek Hill. It looks like teams have adapted to that now, and a defense that could at least not stop, but at least limit the damage that can be done. So
just for context, the Chiefs have run 111 points a game rushing, which is 16th, which serviceable for a Chiefs offense like that, where their passing is insane.
And against this Chargers team, look, this is not going to be a game like the Cincinnati Bengals, where you're going to jump out to a 24-point lead and take a little bit of the run game away. This is not going to be the Giants game, where even though you had an inept quarterback and running was all you could do, this is not going to be that type of a game. So you're going to see Clyde Edwards Helaire probably rip off a couple against this Chargers run defense. I think that the Chiefs are still going to be able to play a little bit of their game. But Dan, the biggest thing here is you're going to have to figure out some way to discombobulate Patrick Mahomes and make him feel uncomfortable and force him back into making mistakes that he was making during this first matchup. Remember, again, the Chargers had to get 4 total turnovers and only beat them by 6. So what would be the optimistic scenario that we're looking at here for Thursday? Well, we teased this a little bit in last night's show. It looks as if all indications that Derwin James is going to be ready to go on Thursday. That's number 1.
Huge.
Number 2, you look at the latest injury report from today. Obviously, yesterday, the Chargers didn't practice at all. So Daniel Popper just basically put out a projection of what the injury status was, the latest, essentially. So it was virtually everybody did not practice, except Asante Samuel was limited. And now virtually everybody today is limited. And those limited players include...
Spring it on with 40 to 70% off almost everything at Gap Factory and GapFactory.com. Matching styles for the family are on sale too. Shop it all through April 12th.
Alohi Gilman that we haven't seen in a while. Who's some other guys that were on here? Nothing really outstanding for guys that we haven't seen in a while, except Alohi Gilman and Asante Samuel Jr. By all indication, the rest of the guys that are on this list, Jared Cook, Austin Eckler, Justin Jones, Linval Joseph, Trey Marshall, Mike Williams, and Donald Parham are all going to play. So the Chargers may end up being, I can't say offensively, obviously, but defensively, they may be as close to full strength as they have been in some time.
And I think they are best equipped to go up against this Chiefs offense of anyone in the AFC West.
Asante Samuel Jr., fantastic interception in their first meeting.
Yep. Now we talked about those kind of season stats for the Chargers offense, but if you look at the Chiefs offense, it gets a little interesting. So Mahomes, by the way, has less yards, touchdowns, more interceptions, lower quarterback rating, than Justin Herbert. Just want to point that out. Remember that one fumble that Justin Herbert had this season so far? Patrick Mahomes has 7 times that. So a way to get to Mahomes and a way to get to that offense, strip sack. You saw Bosa do it against Mike Glennon last week. It's going to happen. Now, obviously, anyone going up against a Chiefs offense knows they live and die by 3 guys. Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. I think Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce could combine for, I think it's like 50% of the targets of the entire team.
Yeah, the sky is blue, essentially.
After that, the next closest is Mecole Harmon, who has like 12% and has like 62 targets total, compared to like 109, 130 plus for Tyreek Hill and Kelce. Now, again, think about roster build, right? Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr., and Mike Davis, I think, are going to be huge in this game. I would love to see like Asante Samuel / Mike Davis blanket Tyreek Hill. That would be awesome. And if you can get Chris Harris and Derwin James to get that Kelce area, that leaves Nazir Adderley, that leaves Alohi Gilman, that leaves Trey Marshall, Keemon Hall, and Tavon Campbell.
I mean, again, this is all speculation and, for lack of a better word, hope that the Chargers get these certain players back.
But that's what I'm saying is like that's a good matchup. That's a way to win. Like, you got Drew Tranquil back, who is now able to do sideline to sideline things with Kaiser White on those running back things outside. Like, this team is built to beat them. So overall, we have the dudes on defense, which that has been the one thing that we have not had in a while. And then when you look at the statistics about these, look, the Chiefs offense is a juggernaut. Just like we talked about the Chargers offense, the Chiefs offense is statistically, I think, better in almost every category. They're 4th in yards per game, 8th in yards per play, 6th in passing yards per game, 5th in sacks allowed, which is actually pretty damn good for him. Best in the NFL in third down percentage, Jake. They convert over 52% of their third downs. 4th down, they're also 2nd. So, like, they're getting the money plays. And first downs per game, they're 2nd. Scoring, they are 3rd. Scoring percentage, they're 3rd. But penalties per game, again, 2 Achilles heels. 1 penalty, 2 turnover percentage. They are 30th in the NFL, giving up 16% turnovers per drive. So, like, all good except turnovers and penalties, okay? The red zone touchdown percentage on offense is okay. It's 14th, kind of middle of the road. Rushing yards per game, we mentioned before, 16th. Now, Chargers, bad things early, okay? First, rushing yards, we already know. 31st in the NFL, but although they've gotten better, like, I think they're within like 2 yards of being able to go down to like 26th or something like that. Scoring percentage, they give up 24th most, 42% scoring percentage, which is not good. Third down percentage, Jake, you're not going to like this. Dead last. Giving up 49% third down percentage. 4th down percentage, though, 1st in the NFL, only doing 31%. Surprisingly, yards after the catch, which I think is something that Kansas City hangs their hat on, the Chargers are 5th best in the NFL in yards after catch allowed, which I actually was kind of surprised about that. 21st in sacks, 24th in red zone percentage. So the 24th is not very good. But blitz percentage, 19th, which you're like, okay, that's not that great. Hurry percentage, 7th. Pressure percentage, 11th. Sack percentage, 12th. Joey Bosa, Nwosu, and Tilly are the top 3 in terms of tackles, or to the quarterback hits, Bosa has 19, which is insanity. And then both Nwosu and Tilly have more than 10. Have 10 or more. If we look at their offense versus our defense compared to the other way around earlier in the segment, this is a more evenly looked at matchup than the other one, in my opinion. Again, Achilles heel for this team, penalties, turnovers. Patrick Mahomes will fumble the ball. and has chucked up plays all year. So there's a path to victory here for the Chargers in many ways. And I think what's important is if the Chargers can blanket, like, don't let this be the Clyde Edwards Helaire, 200 yards rushing between him and Darrell Williams. Like, can't have that happen. But otherwise, like, I think this defense is ready for this game. Like, this is what we talked about this last year. Like, this is what we hoped for when we saw this Chargers defense. This is what it was built for. I'm telling you, I'm bullish on this game. I know Rashawn Slater, that's a big miss. I think the Chargers defense is far better than it was last year. Far better than it was last year.
Well,
especially against this kind of offense.
Compared to last year, yeah, virtually anything's better than the Chargers defense last year.
And we lost by a field goal in overtime and then beat them last year with a shit offensive line, if we're just being honest. This defense is better. Its coaching staff is better. Time management's better. The quarterback's better. Wide receivers are better. I would say our corners are also better even than last year. So I know I'm the optimist. I know you're the pessimist. And what are the chances the Chargers can sweep the Chiefs any season? Like, pretty slim. But, like, better chance now than any other year we've had. Worst case scenario, you split with the Chiefs, which you would have taken going into the year. So, like, this should be a blockbuster. This should be fireworks on offense on both sides. I don't see the Chiefs defense stopping this Chargers offense. I see the Chargers offense stopping the Chargers offense for damn sure. But the part that scares me the most in this game, more than the Rashawn Slater crap, is the special teams. And that has been the Achilles heel of the Chargers for years. They've gotten a little bit better this year, especially once they got Justin Hopkins and Andre Roberts. But the Chiefs' special teams units are balling. And that worries me. That's one thing that worries me more than anything else, is their advantage they have on special teams. They are giving so many yards to their offense and keeping other offenses so far back because of their coverage and return capabilities that they're making people go all the way down the field on them. Yards per punt return allowed, Chiefs are first in the NFL. Yards per kick return allowed, first in the NFL. Yards per punt return actually gained because of Byron Pringle, fifth, almost 12 yards per return. And then eighth because of Mecole Harmon in yards per kick return at 24.1 yards per return. Now, compare that, Jake. Chargers special teams unit, 29th in yards per punt return allowed. So people are getting lots of yards on them on punt returns. Yards per kick return allowed, not bad. Not bad. 14th. We would have taken that in a heartbeat going into the season. But yards per punt return gained, just 26th in the NFL, just 7. Remember, 7 for us, 11.8 for them. 21st in the NFL in yards per kick return that we have gained versus their 8th in the NFL, 20 versus 24.1. Now, the one glimmer of hope that we have on special teams is the fact that we have Andre Roberts. Because Andre Roberts right now, Jake, by himself, averaging 25.3 yards per return, which is better than the Chiefs' 24.1. So if we just isolate Andre Roberts, we're doing damn good. But if we put in everyone else in the special teams the first part of the year, they're 21st. Dustin Hopkins has been pretty good. Harrison Butker also is very good. But there's going to be so much hidden yardage going to be lost or won on special teams that can skew plus minus 10, 20, 30 yards per drive. You gotta fix that. Special teams has been a damn shame. They've gotten better. They're middle of the road in a lot of things, but they are allowing almost 12 yards per punt return. That's 3 times what we're doing. That's 3 times more than what the Chiefs are allowing. That scares me. I'm being honest. That scares me.
I don't blame you for being scared at that, Dan. I don't. I think that's a fair stat. Why is it so relevant? Because you look back to the first matchup here, and the Chargers' return game essentially was not needed in this one. It wasn't a factor at all. The Chargers' drives that they scored on, 51 yards, 53 yards, 69 yards, 59 yards. Okay? Those were their drives. 10 plays, 8 plays, 6 plays, 9 plays, whatever you want to call it. But it's also because they were turning the ball over throughout the game. So they were given a short field. Now, flip side of that, you look at what Kansas City did when they scored. 11 plays, 70 yards. 12 plays, 75 yards. 10 plays, 70 yards. 12 plays, 72 yards. So the Chargers even forced them to drive a longer field and still ended up letting them have points on the board. So
but that's why they were able to get the 4 turnovers. They
right,
just
and
letting them play.
I get that, but I don't think. Sorry to say, I would love to see a repeat performance of that, but I don't think that we're going to get that. So yes, special teams are going to have to be a much bigger factor here. It's just all hands on deck is the best way you could say it.
And last year, years past, we had Anthony Lynn. And this year, our coaching staff has been a blessing. There has not been a single game where there has been a coaching mishap, like a real one, that has costed us a victory. Not one. And last year, I would say there were probably 6 games.
If that.
6 games. No, there were probably 6 games that we could have
6
won.
At minimum. 6 at minimum.
That were lost because of coaching gaffes. So the team is far more set up for success than I think people give them credit for. So, Jake, keys to the game.
Before we get into it, because I need to take a deep breath from all of this anyways, Dan. Still have to pay the bills here just a little bit. Want to remind all of our listeners that if you are like me and you do enjoy sports betting in general, make sure to check out MyBookie. If you're looking for outside of the NFL games to bet on, fantastic event coming up this weekend, just off the heels of UFC 269, UFC Fight Night, Derek Lewis versus Chris Dukas, along with Stephen Thompson and Bilal Muhammad. Good card for a Saturday to go along with the NFL games that will be played on Saturday this week, which is nice. So make sure to use the promo code LAFB when you go on there and place your bet. Do it now. Thank me later, much later, but enjoy yourself while you're doing it. Go to mybookie.ag.
By the way, when you use the code LAFB, if you were to put a bet on the Chargers-Chiefs game, total points scored, over or under?
Oh, it's going over. Because if you're betting for the Chargers to win, that's what they're going to have to do is score that many points.
Yep. All right, so Jake, keys of the game. We've talked about all kinds of statistics. We talked about some of the players. We talked about all the position rankings and things like that for this team. By the time Thursday comes, obviously, Rashawn Slater and Chris Jones playing are huge keys to this game. But aside from the injury stuff, let's assume everyone else for the most part is playing. If there was a couple stats, if there was a couple areas where if the Chargers are able to do blank,
man,
they have this game in the bag.
If the Chargers are able to play their game offensively, if you are going to continue the continuity that you have built up in your offensive play calling over the last 2 weeks, obviously you can't settle for field goals in this game. It's just not going to happen. Despite what you want to think about Kansas City's offense not being able to put it together against lesser competition, I don't care. Against the Chargers, much like it was when I said against the Denver Broncos, they come to play us every time. And yes, it's inexcusable that the Chargers lost that game to a Denver team that had 2 quarterbacks that collectively only threw 15 passes. But that's neither here nor there. Like I said earlier, this is for control of the AFC West. You can't put any more volume behind this. So, of course, both teams are going to come out to play. So the margin for error is literally 0. You have to be flawless. And offensively, during the first game of the year, they were flawless because they did not surrender one turnover in this game. You cannot give Patrick Mahomes those extra opportunities to put points on the board. Defensively, you're going to have to figure out some way to get turnovers. You're going to have to figure out some way to get to Patrick Mahomes. Let's see if you can limit the run game just a bit. It's not going to be easy, but I think that the Chargers, especially with some key depth pieces that they've had, Joe Gaziano, Brandon Fajoko, Forrest Merrill, they've added a little bit more to the interior of this defensive line. So, and then it's basically pick your poison. Who is it that you want to kill you? Because it was Travis Kelce in the first meeting, went over 100 yards, scored a touchdown. You limited Tyreek Hill actually pretty good in that game. So pick and choose. Which one do you want to do? By no means can the Chargers allow themselves to get in a hole, even though one of Justin Herbert's comeback victories this year was against this team. And let's not forget, while the score still says 30-24, it was literally in the final minute of the game that Brandon Staley had to make a collective decision to either trot out Tristan Vizcaino or keep the ball in Justin Herbert's hands.
Yep.
He made the call on a 4th down play. Was it a complete pass? No, but he was able to draw a pass interference, which kept the drive alive. And 2 plays later, Mike Williams ends up in the end zone, of course, poetically against the Chiefs. And that's how the Chargers got this victory. I think that was around the time, too, where we started saying, Staley's got balls to do what he was doing. So you almost have to replicate, Dan, what you did last week. And especially from the standpoint that you have not one, but 2 offensive linemen that were not there in the that were there in the first meeting that will not be there in this one. And I'm talking about Ode Bushi and, of course, Rashawn Slater. By all indications, it looks like, unfortunately, Rashawn Slater is not going to be available come Thursday. So unless God, the football gods, whatever God it is that you would want to pray to, again, start doing those good luck seances. Unless they bless the Chargers with a gift early for Christmas, don't expect to see Slater out there come Thursday, unfortunately. So what Dan is trying to get to, and what I am very much rambling on about as far as in terms of making my point, the Chargers are just going to have to be flawless on both sides of the ball.
Easy. No problem. Okay.
No problem at all.
So we talked earlier about how this defense, I think, is built to go up against this Chiefs offense. You mentioned the interior defensive line and the defensive front as a whole. Joey Bosa leads the NFL in forced fumbles. Strip sacks, 5. I think he's on pace for 12.
And teabagging celebrations, he leads the league in as well.
Mm-hmm. Uchenna Nwosu also has done pretty good. So from an edge perspective, throwing some Kaiser White, Drew Tranquil.
Mm-hmm.
I think they got juice there to rush the quarterback. Now, from a pressure perspective, that's one layer. Next layer, and I think this is going to be the key to my victory for the Chargers, is can this linebacking core contain their running backs out of the backfield? I'm talking passes out of the backfield. If you look at how the Chiefs score a lot, there's these swing passes outside to Darrell Williams, Clyde Edwards Helaire that just cripple you. Thank God we have Drew Tranquil. Thank God Kaiser White, because both of those guys, sideline to sideline, are elite. They're great at that. I think they're good there. But I think that's the key to the game right there, is that middle section of the defense. And then obviously, we can't give up the huge plays. We know that. I'm worried about Mecole Harmon and Tavon Campbell. That scares the living daylights out of me. And you hope it's coverage of the top, in theory. Please, Nazir Adderley. But otherwise, if you can force the Chiefs to make 12, 14, 15 play drives, I trust our defense to make plays. I really do. And for as jacked up as I'm sure the Chiefs are, and I'm sure the fans are going to be for both sides, and SoFi is going to be electric, you know how hungry this Chargers team is. Like, imagine Derwin James, what he's feeling like right now, getting back in. Asante Samuel Jr., I think, is the perfect complement to Mike Davis on Tyreek Hill. Asante Samuel's like a cat, just like Tyreek Hill. Mike Davis has the speed to go over the top. Getting into bold and game predictions, Jake.
Ugh.
I know you love this section.
Your favorite fucking section.
Yes. I'm going to go first. Bold prediction. Chargers are going to get 3 turnovers. At least 1 strip sack. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both are going to go over 1,000 yards for the season. Chargers win without Rashawn Slater. 37-34. And poetic justice would be amazing as if we can actually get it on a last second field goal from I don't want a long one. I want like a 27-yarder to win it.
Damn, my emotions are they're just all over the damn place right now. Okay. Obviously I'm backed into a corner here. Normally where Dan would be asking me these questions, normally he'd be expecting me to, say that after everything that I've said today, that the Chargers are going to lose this game. And normally if I was an ass, I know I'm pessimistic, but I'm not an asshole. Normally I would just go that route and basically just negate everything that I said. But Dan, because of where we're at in the season, again, this is not earlier on against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. I, like most people, when you play the Chiefs at home, the opposing team normally loses. And I picked the Chargers to lose in that situation earlier this season.
You've picked the Chargers to lose a lot of games this year.
Yeah, but in this scenario, I obviously can't be a dick because I know what's on the line. So I feel like I'm almost pushed.
Be honest.
I feel like I'm almost because it's me talking more on emotion. Of course, I want to see the Chargers win. And especially with everything that's on the line right now, and where I
think the Chargers are going to win on Thursday?
Do I think that they're going to win, Dan? I don't know. And this goes into your bold predictions, much like it was last week when I said that I didn't give a shit about bold and game predictions, just win the game because you had no excuse to lose to a Giants team. It's kind of the same here, but it's the I don't give a shit. I don't care how you win, just win. Whether it's a weird-ass defensive pass interference that keeps a drive alive that you ultimately score on like it was the first day, fine. Whether it's from a fluke, rinky-dink, last minute.
Mahomes hits a pigeon and it drops into Michael Davis's arms.
Something like that. I don't care. Just find a way to win the game on Thursday. I don't need to go into any bold predictions. This game, in my opinion, is going to be an absolute shootout. Both teams are going to come ready to play on both sides of the ball. Can the Chargers withstand the loss of Rashawn Slater and defeat the Chiefs to take control of the AFC West?
Could you imagine?
Time
for a second
will tell.
Imagine the euphoria if the Chargers go to bed Thursday night 9-5 atop the AFC West. Like NFL, Chargers, Twitter, ESPN is going to have an absolute meltdown.
No, I don't think they will. I think they'll talk about more of the moral victories.
They'll talk about
they'll be fine before playoffs. Before the playoffs come around, and that most likely they'll probably even still take the division. But yeah, that's what they'll be talking about Thursday.
And Justin Herbert will be firmly in the MVP race.
God, you can't wait to talk about that.
If I'm telling you, if he can go back-to-back weeks with that performance he had against the Giants, followed up against beating the Chiefs, top 3
Rashawn Slater,
top 3 MVP vote in my book, easy. Chargers, Chiefs, Thursday night, primetime game under the lights, which, by the way, Jake, don't forget, Justin Herbert balls out on primetime.
Time Herbert. Can't knock it. It's been well documented in just 2 short seasons.
I'm riding that way. Chargers are winning this one 37-34. Jake, anything else we need to tell the good people before we sign off and start stressing out some more about this game?
I just hope, well, I hope that I don't have to schedule a heart appointment on Friday.
It's happening.
Normally, you know what? Screw that. Yeah, it is happening. So I already know I'm going to have to go see a heart doctor on Friday instead of the following Monday that normally these appointments would be scheduled for. But I hope we all enjoyed our stress-free game against the Giants, because trust me on this, emotions are going to be through the roof. The blood pressure is going to be circulating. I'm going to be pacing back and forth in front of my television, no doubt about it. Let's just get out of SoFi with a win.
Let's get into SoFi. Let's make this place electric. If you're going to the game, get loud on defense, shut up on offense. Let's support this team, man. They're 8-5, first-year head coach, first-year coaching staff, all these new players. This team, I hate to say it, is outperforming people's expectations. Enjoy this huge game, primetime. Let's have some fun. For Jake Hefner, again, you can find us at Chargers Unleashed on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell notifications. Both of us wearing backwards hat. You can find him in his backward hat at Jake T. Hefner. Myself at Chargers Homer on Twitter. Take some breaths. We're going to get through this together. Bolt up, fam. Let's have some fun. Let's get this Chargers victory on Thursday. Happy Thursday night football to all. For Chargers Unleashed, we are out. We'll talk to you next time. Have a good one.